Good afternoon. This is Ron Stanchfield, also known as Ronan, also known as RJ, also known as Scratch. And I've been told and advised by others not to give all the different names. And I can't help it because over a period of a lifetime, you get called different names and you respond to those names. Usually they're timely. Like for the last 2 years, I've been RJ because that's my writing name, and I've changed that on the poker room, and most of the people um, didn't know that I was really Scratch, and Scratch is my perennial name that I've had for 15 years or more. And so I have all the names, and I'm giving them to you so you'll know me by one or the other. So that's what that's about, and I'm not going to debate it anymore. Stop it. I don't want to talk about it anymore. That's it. It's over. Okay. But what I do want to talk about is I'm in a quandary, and I'll tell you what it is. When I wrote years ago, I wrote about 5 books, I think, some of which I have now. I found them recently, and I'm going to rewrite them. I'm definitely going to do that. I looked at them enough to realize that they could have value. I did this book. I'll tell you one thing I did. Let me give you. All right, this book was a very straight nonfiction book about the construction of a big Hamptons mansion that I designed and that I built and that I sold. It was part of a project I had with a number of people. And I wanted to keep exact track of it for a lot of reasons, because in a sense, from a construction perspective, this was going to be my masterpiece, because often I designed restaurants and bars and clubs and stuff like that, beach concessions, homes, many homes, and I built them. But this one was going to be so happens this one begot another one, and they both combined were huge Hamptons mansions. And I'm proud of both of them, and I had everything to do with both of them. Anyway, the book I'm talking about was what I thought was going to be my last work, which was about a 6,000 square foot home with another 2,000 square foot in the basement, a pool house, a 3-car garage with an apartment over it, on a big estate overlooking a bay, not a bay, a big lake in Watermill, which is between Southampton and Bridgehampton. And I was very detailed about everything. Every day I went in, I made notes, and I really kept a chronicle of everything that was said and done. And the reason I did that was because of my instinct as a writer, but because it helps later in the project if you can look back at when something occurred. So I have that. And it is here. Let me not get lazy. This is it. Okay. And that's what it's called. This is the actual house. And you can see it this way. You can see the whole thing this way. And it's a gorgeous house, and it's owned now by a very high-end, famous lawyer. And he and I have different points of view on who designed it. I'm not going to tell you the name of the famous architect who he thinks designed it, because I know exactly how my partner and I worked with that famous architect. And indeed, we did consider it, but we decided against it. I had my way. It was my call, because I knew more about design and knew more about construction. And my partner was a publisher. Okay, so I kept this, and this is filled with notes, and I'll even, let me see if I can, I mean, this is really a typical page, okay? There's a diagram, and I talk about it. And this was on February 28th. I'll read a little bit of it to you. On February 28th, it snowed. I reminded Steve that we had a conference call with Sean from ASBS about the balance and the charges to chargebacks by March 1st and so forth and so on. That's what this contains. And it has issues when there were issues, and if there was a disagreement, it has that, it has everything. And I wrote it for the sake of having a book to be presented to the owner, but Steve and I had a big fight, and we agreed that he can do the other two houses, primarily because it was mostly his money who was spending them. So basically, I oversaw the rest of the two other jobs. We did 3 mansions on the water, this one being the first. Okay, so this was written about 18 years ago. The job was almost 20 years ago. And I put it away. I forgot all about it. But when my friend, an artist, a famous artist, called me and he said, the lawyer is interested in finding out who did the design. And I said, I'll be happy to talk to him. And I have the proof of an entire, almost a 400-page book on the thing. And so I thought about it and I said, well, how do I handle this? He's going to want to know that that it wasn't some chump from New York City who designed it. He's got to want, I mean, he didn't say it, but he's got to want to think that the very famous architect designed his house. In the book, I have a couple of phrases in there that we looked at the drawings by the famous architect and considered them, because we did. And I'm willing, frankly, to rewrite the book and make it so that this is a function of the real. I mean, the wording has to be delicate because I want it to be true, but I also want to put value on the building by having the written testament of what happened, every move. And so I'm in this curious position and I'm thinking, well, what do I do with this story? Assuming that the lawyer and I work out a deal of some sort. And then I'm saying, aha, guess what I have? I have the setting, the perfect setting for a murder mystery. So I'm also excited about that because I know now that we could have a series of murders surrounding this really incredibly beautiful building in the Hamptons. And with a lot of people who were in the news as part of the visitors, friends, etc., partiers, and so forth. So I know I have a valuable idea for a house, and I also want to help this lawyer if he wants to be helped. But if he wants to be helped, then that means I need to edit the book, and to edit the book is going to be costly to him. But it will be from the original drafter, because that's what I'll be demoting myself to. And I will be taking on the role of the builder, because that's really what I did anyway. Okay, so that's that. That's one book. And then I found another book, which was called Beyond the Great Divide. And this was another partner and I, and we co-wrote this. And it was done, I'm going to say 30 years ago. And it had a real, I mean, he was a far right-wing guy. I was a far left-wing guy. And together we realized that he and I need to come together in order for this world to come together. And we thought we came upon the book, and we started to write the book, and I have it, and it's ready to be completed, and I didn't know it until I started looking at it, when I started looking at old work that I had done. So I got two books that are already in the coffers, done. Both need a lot of revision, but they're done, and anyone could revise that with directions. And then I have another book I did. This is some people who read it will laugh, but I wrote a book with a new language. It wasn't that new. It was a variation on an extreme English, let's call it that. And it was in particular Celtic. And I mean that in a very generic way. I created a language that could be readable as an English person, and I told the story as that. And when I read it last week, I fell in love with it. I said, my God, this was good. Why didn't I promote this book? And so I got three books that are already ready to go, and it's a matter of doing. The problem is I also got a sequence. And this started out to be about my publisher, and it is about my publisher. I don't think I want him, or at least I don't want him for anything new I do. I have a 2-year contract. He has a 2-year ability to renew it, but I want him to at least admit that we're finished after 2 years. I'm not going to go a third and fourth year with him, because by then I'll know enough about the business to be able to produce and publish. And I hate, this is going to sound arrogant, and promote it to where I can sell books. Because I see through the bullshit. I really do. And I can cut to the point of the issue. And I'm often wrong, but I'm just as often right. And I know the difference between wrong and right. And that's the quality I'm bringing to this. And so that's my dilemma. I don't know what I'm going to do. I really don't know what I'm going to do. I like the publisher, but I guess what I could probably say in fairness is that he hasn't lived up to his part of the bargain. Here it is, December 2nd, and I'm supposed to have another version of the first book out to be presented properly for this particular Christmas season. And he said nothing about it. He totally forgot. And I didn't want to say anything because I'm busy doing the sequel. And there's a third sequel after that. So I got a lot on the plate. I would have done it if he would have shown some anxiety, not anxiety, yeah, anxiety about getting it done. But he doesn't care. In other words, I think he thinks that the promotion he's ever willing to do anyway. For instance, I have to talk to a radio engineer or audio engineer because I want to read the book into an audio book. And I'll do that, and I'll pay the person to do the engineering. But I want to do that, and I want to own that outrightly. I don't want to share it now. So that's where I am with that. And there's the possibility of a translation into other languages, which I'm going to pursue too. And I think that has value. And I really want this all to work, and I want it to happen in the next 5 years. So I have a heavy agenda. And I'm going to put this out there because anyone who has any ideas for me, I'd like you to get in touch with me. And I'd like you to be serious about it because I do know of which way we can go on this. And then finally, I got to tell you the truth. I got stories for my grandchildren who I really want to get out. And they may become you know, radio stories where I just tell them over what they're about and then let someone write them. So that's really where I'm heading. And I need advice. So please, 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 if you have an idea, and there's other things that are going on that I took out. I made it what I wanted to do. I just did a half of a book on nonfiction on the 1950s in Eastern Europe and the refugees from all the countries on the Eastern Bloc were moving because there were like many different forms of communism, and there was a lot of different cultures that were, they were arguing, and it was an awful, awful scene. And many of them chose to, take offers by the United States, Canada, and Australia to come and live there. I remember when I was like in grade school that a number of people from Hungary and, yeah, Budapest, they came from there and they joined the classes and learned English pretty quick. And uh, they also knew a good friend of mine at Brooklyn Tech, Charles Wang, who came from China at that time. It was nothing to do at all with Europe, but China was also, people were emigrating from China too. Charles Wang, my friend from China, he did well here and grew up here and made loads of money. He had Computer Associates, he had the Islanders. He was, a success. He helped to bring uh, the Chinese government into and kind of accepting the idea of a business relationship with the United States. And that was him. He did that. He passed, but he was a good friend. So there was a lot of movement in the 50s. The world changed because World War II ended, and everyone could feel the new juxtaposition of all people in the world. And they all scrambled around to see where they would be with their family. It was a hard time, and yet it was a great time. And I've written about that, and I'm touched by that era. My life was, I was a New York City street kid. Um, all of this meant nothing to me, and at the time I said, "Oh, they're from Hungary." I liked them, the people, and but I had no idea what trials and tribulations they were going through. So I think we're in one of those stages right now. By the way, this pandemic an awful, awful thing, but we're needing to readjust ourselves into a new world because the old way is not the way anymore. There's a lot of things tangential to the virus itself. There's the environment, the climate. There's business. There's you know this thing called a corporation needs to realign itself seriously because it's now the brunt of the problem. It's not communism and it's not socialism. It's not uh, free enterprise. It is corporatism. It's it is the problem, and it's going to fight for its life, as far as I'm concerned. In fact, the book, um, "The Great Divide," it was tentatively called, is about that, and it was written 25 years ago. So that's what's up in the world for me, and I got a lot of things to think of, and I don't know what I'll do, and I'll try to do it all. Like a typical bipolar degenerate, which is what I am. Okay, I'll see you later. Bye-bye.